Imagine an entire culture, like thousands of years of vibrant living history, just vanishing forever. Why? Well, mostly because the younger generation is glued to their screens and these ancient traditions, they just don't speak their digital language. So today, in this explainer, we're diving into a totally unexpected, honestly incredible technological breakthrough in how we're actually preserving human history. Okay, let's dive into this because the stakes here are, quite literally, an existential crisis. All across the globe, ancient human history is fading out. The traditional ways we've always used to pass culture down, sitting around listening to elders or reading old, dusty textbooks, they're completely missing the mark with younger generations. They're digital natives. If it's not on a screen, if it's not interactive or visually popping, it's essentially invisible to them. So, how on earth do we bridge this massive gap? To figure out the solution, we've got to look at a super fascinating case study documented in recent research. It's the Makassar oral tradition from South Sulawesi, Indonesia. Now, this is a rich, beautifully complex culture, completely packed with stories, poems, and proverbs, but it's fading incredibly fast. You've got globalization, the total dominance of modern pop culture, and the rise of the digital era, basically pushing these local languages and traditions right to the very edge of extinction. Which brings us to the core issue, the digital generation gap. See, conventional teaching methods are just completely failing these digital natives. Think about a tradition like Cyrillic. This is a traditional Makassarese rhythmic prose performance, and the absolute key word here is performance. Traditions like Cyrillic, Kelong, and Pau Pau Rekadong, they aren't meant to be read in silence. No way. They demand face-to-face interaction. They require physical presence, the right intonation, an actual storyteller. If that storyteller isn't sitting right there in front of you, the story basically just disappears into thin air. And this brilliantly illustrates the real problem, right? The gap. On one hand, you have the oral tradition. It's performative, it's philosophical, and it totally relies on being face-to-face. But on the exact opposite side, you have modern digital culture. It's hypervisual, it expects immediate interactivity, and it's populated by digital natives. Trying to teach a performative spoken tradition using a static textbook? It's literally like trying to play a vinyl record on a smartphone. It just doesn't work.
So, enter our solution, AI, the unexpected savior.
Now, we often think of artificial intelligence as this cold tech overlord, right? Or maybe a disruptor of human creativity. But researchers have actually found a way to use it to bridge this massive generational divide. The crucial point here is how this works in practice through a really innovative pedagogical framework called the AI-Enhanced Cultural Immersion Model, or AIECI for short. Instead of throwing a complex, overwhelming academic theory at you, they break it down into 3 super digestible, engaging steps. Step 1 uses generative AI for visuals. Step 2 uses natural language processing for interactive dialogue. And Step 3 empowers students through collaborative digital production.
Let's start with Step 1, visualizing the past.
So how do you actually take ancient, poetic words and metaphors and make them instantly captivating for someone whose baseline is highly stylized digital media? Well, in this step, students use generative AI tools like Midjourney or Google AI Studio. But here's the absolute genius part. The students aren't just sitting back, passively looking at pictures. They act as the prompters. They have to deeply study the complex philosophical verses of their ancestors, figure out what they actually mean, and then write digital prompts to turn those ancient metaphors into incredible visual art. Imagine taking a 100-year-old local myth and generating a stunning anime-style digital asset for it. It totally shifts the students from being bored memorizers to highly creative, engaged thinkers.
Moving right along to Step 2, the interactive chatbot. Visuals are great, for sure, but how do you practice a spoken language when there are basically no native speakers around to converse with? What's really interesting here is how AI completely removes the fear of failure. By using natural language processing, or NLP, researchers can create voice assistants and chatbots trained specifically in the Makassarese dialect. This gives students a completely judgment-free zone to practice speaking. If they mispronounce a tricky regional word, the AI doesn't laugh at them, it just gives them gentle, real-time feedback. It allows the oral tradition to go back to its roots as an active medium of communication, rather than just some passive object of study.
And that leads us to Step 3, becoming cultural producers.
Once the students can visualize the stories and actually speak the language with confidence, we see the real power of social constructivism. That's just a fancy way of saying people learn best by actively creating things together. Here, AI acts as a creative partner, letting students transform these ancient oral literatures into dynamic digital comics, interactive podcasts, and even short-form videos. They aren't just learning about their culture anymore, they're actively producing it for social media. By putting these stories onto digital platforms in cool, modern formats, they're ensuring these ancient values remain highly competitive and visible in cyberspace. Let's look at the bigger picture now, saving global cultural heritage.
If we zoom out, the implications here are just staggering. This isn't just a clever little project for one city in Indonesia, it's a global blueprint. Literally any dying language or fading tradition on Earth could potentially use this exact same framework. The researchers even mapped this AI integration directly to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. For instance, large language models that translate concepts directly support SDG 4, quality education, making learning inclusive and relevant. Meanwhile, using AI vision and NLP to identify and preserve oral literature directly supports SDG 11, sustainable communities. Specifically, this addresses SDG Target 11.4. This target is a massive global call to action to protect and safeguard the world's cultural and natural heritage. By converting ephemeral spoken words into permanent digital assets that young people actually want to engage with, this AI model directly answers that call. It ensures that the cities of our future remain culturally rooted. To bring it all home, look at this powerful insight straight from the research. AI isn't replacing the human element of these traditions, it's rescuing it. Without these intelligent technological interventions, these rich, beautiful cultural histories and the incredibly unique ways they view the world will simply vanish as their last native speakers pass away. Technology, surprisingly enough, is the bridge to keep the human story alive. Which leaves us with a pretty fascinating thought to consider. Think about your own heritage, your own local myths, or maybe the fading dialects of your grandparents. What ancient tradition from your culture would you want to see brought to life with AI? Drop your thoughts down in the comments. We would absolutely love to hear how you'd use this tech to save your own history. Thanks for joining us for this explainer, and we'll see you next time.